And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight we're going to be joined by my guest, Arielle. Arielle had some experiences growing up in a house that she believes was possessed by some sort of demonic presence. There was a lot of weird stuff going on that affected her and her family. Before we bring her on, though, if you've ever had an experience and you would like to be on an episode of Tinfoil Tales, there's a couple things you can do. Please send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com or go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Either way, get your message to me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. If you'd like to help the podcast out, please continue to share it around. Word of mouth is the best way of getting the podcast out there to new listeners. For every new listener, there is a potential new guest, so that means more episodes coming your way. You can also help out by leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Tinfoil Tales at. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, just click that 5 stars and it does help me out. You can also help out by joining the Patreon. There's a free tier and a paid tier. You get early access to all the episodes. They're all ad-free. There's exclusive content on there, so make sure to check out the show notes for more information about the Patreon. And as always, follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X. More active on Facebook, so look for Tinfoil Tales or Brandon Tinfoil Tales on Facebook. We're going to go ahead now and bring Arielle on, doing a live interview here in the studio. I've known Arielle for a few years, so definitely looking forward to sitting down and talking with her. I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest in studio with me tonight, Arielle. Thanks for coming in here and talking with me tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
So, I pretty much grew up, same state, same town, had some really weird experiences, and just gonna ramble about some of those.
We've known each other for a few years outside of this podcast. Your fiance is one of my best friends, so
Yeah.
that gives you the privilege to come into my barn, the rabbit hole, or whatever I decide to end up calling it, and record with me in person.
It's very cool.
You are the third person to get to record in here. So I've got a few other people wanting to, but I'm so booked out that it's hard to do it. So I'm trying to do it on a weekend, and usually the weekends are busy for me too. So,
Right.
but no, if you want to dive on into what you're wanting to talk about, we can get right on into it.
Okay. Well, so I have a twin brother, and me and him are really close. So when we were about 12, we went with my mom to look at this new house we were about to move into, and she had got it from her cousin who was in the military. And the first day, it was summer, super nice day, super sunny, all that. A lot of windows in this house, so it looked all bright and nice. But as soon as I went in there, I felt like a heaviness that I have not felt before. It was almost like impending doom. And so, I was exploring the house while they were off also exploring the house, doing whatever. And I walked upstairs because it was a 2-level house, and instantly it just got worse. That feeling did. So I was like, okay, it's really weird. And we moved in. Everything was fine for a couple months. And one night, me and my brother and one of our friends we grew up with, we used to love those lightsabers that actually lit up and stuff. So we had all the lights off in the house downstairs. and was just playing around, acting like Jedis and whatnot. And we all got to a point where he just kind of like took a break and was looking around and in the dark. And we just all saw like a figure walk from the dining room into the kitchen and disappear. And we all just like were quiet. And then all of a sudden, all the dishes in the sink flew out. And so we ran upstairs to our parents' room and was like, we just saw something and all the dishes crashed in the kitchen. They're like, oh, you were just playing too rough or then you like shook the kitchen or something. And we were like, okay, that's really not what happened, but all right.
What did it look like if you could define the shape to it?
Humanoid for sure. Like it had like a human type shape to it. It was like gray. It just stood out from the blackness is all.
So more like a shadow silhouette of a person.
Yeah.
So sometimes people see things and they either have different shapes to themselves, or if you can tell if like it had some sort of like residual clothing look to it, or if it's just a silhouette of a person.
It just had a silhouette of a person, no like defining features really. It was weird.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was like the first weird experience. And just from there on, we always felt like we were being watched, and we'd hear it sounded like someone was walking around downstairs all the time because everybody's bedrooms were upstairs. And downstairs it was like living room, kind of like we had like two dining rooms essentially, and like a bathroom under the stairway, and then a kitchen. And like it was a pretty big space, and we could all just hear sound like someone was walking around downstairs, but our parents never like seemed to take any notice to it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time it was me and my twin brother living at home, and then our older brother and our older sister also still living at home. And none of us really like talked about it till after the fact, after we had moved out like 10 years later. But I guess they had all had experiences too.
How old were you when you moved in?
12.
You were 12?
Mm-hmm. And my older brother, he's 8 years older than me, and then my older sister is 11 years older than me. So, you know, we all had like different experiences, and they're at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my sister, for a little while, she had moved out and then had to move back in, but there wasn't any more room for her because me and my twin would share a bedroom. But after she moved out, I got my own bedroom, which is her old bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So she had slept in the second dining room, essentially. Like we had cleared it out, made it kind of like a little room. And she said at night, she felt like it sounded like someone was, well, she felt someone tugging on her blanket and then heard someone like walking around. So she thought it was like one of us trying to mess with her. And it wasn't, obviously. And she said she started getting really creeped out about it because then she would like anticipate it to happen and there would be like nothing. All she did was just feel the blanket like get tugged.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's just a lot of weird stuff at the time that we didn't really talk about. It was just kind of like, okay, that happened.
Do you ever wonder why no one ever brings it up? It's a very common trait between people to where they experience weird stuff, but for some reason, no one ever wants to talk about it. Like people will have an experience, like they see something at the same exact time, and they will sit in silence and not bring it up until after so long because no one knows how to react to it.
I think it's partially like denial, and then also like, well, what if I'm crazy?
Yeah.
Everybody wonders if they're crazy. And that was definitely my fear is like, oh, I don't want them thinking I'm making it up or imagining it or anything like that. Or
It takes the one person to be brave enough to bring it up to
yeah.
kick it off for everyone else to say things. When it comes to paranormal activity or anything like that, like for me, it's hard to take everything 100% just because I think there's a lot of things when it comes to paranormal stuff that could be explained by something else. But like if you're seeing an actual shadow person basically and the dishes flying to go along with it, like if there's more than just you in there, that would have been the first red flag for everyone else in the family to start talking about it to me because like y'all just seen some shit happen.
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah. Me and my brother, my twin brother, I mean, we would talk about it sometimes, but we were dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff that just wasn't priority. Um, my so just briefly, my mom was schizophrenic, so she's abusive and had weird delusions and stuff. So we were just dealing with a whole bunch of other crap, and none of us really talked about that kind of stuff. So until later.
Without going down that pathway, is it because if you talked about it, were you afraid it would be almost like towards like your mom?
Yeah, that's what we were all kind
People
of
are going to
afraid
think you're
of.
schizophrenic too.
Yeah, we were all,
That makes sense.
yeah. And my older brother, he struggles with drug addiction. So he never really brought anything up either till way later. And yeah, it's just a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on that we never was like, oh, hey, I saw this happen. Did you? And just kept to ourselves.
Was there anything else that happened as I wouldn't say violent, but as chaotic as the glasses dishes being tossed around?
So yeah. So I'm Christian, I believe in God and all that and people like demons and stuff. So it happens one night, me and my dad were at my grandma's house talking about this crazy story she had experienced with, a demon in her place and having to do certain things to get rid of it. And this pastor had told her, if it shows itself or, like starts making noises and stuff like it was, say, in the name of Jesus Christ, leave this house like 3 times and it should make it go away. And so I was like, oh, that's creepy. And it so happens that night when I got home, I had fallen asleep and I had woke up because I had a little Pomeranian that always slept on my bed. And we had wood floors in the room, and he was just growling at this one corner of my room. And it looked like he was slowly like getting scooted back from it. And I was like, am I dreaming right now? Like, what is going on? So I sit there and I'm watching him and he keeps getting slid back, but he's like angry, growling and barking at the corner of my room. So I get freaked out and I start saying that stuff, in the name of Jesus Christ, leave this place and blah, blah, blah. And it stops. The dog, relaxes and just comes and hops up on my bed like nothing even happened. So I was like, well, I'm not going to sleep the rest of the night. And, I ended up telling my brother about that. And he was like, I always feel like there is something in the corner of my room watching me. I've never seen a shape again like we did the first time, but he's like, I always feel like it's here. And I was like, me too.
Yeah. There is, and I forget exactly when this was, but there was something back in, I think it was Vietnam when they did the first like night vision stuff. Have you ever heard? Basically, they were using infrared, but everything was instead of the green look or the white look, everything was in red.
Uh-huh.
The story goes that when they were testing them out, people were freaking out because they could see things flying around.
That's
And
great.
they were calling them demons or other things because they were picking up things that we can't normally see with our naked eye because we can only see in certain color patterns. But like infrared, you can see with certain aspects, like with those full spectrums. There are entities or beings or whatever that supposedly live within these things that we can't normally see. So they're supposedly always around us anyways, which is creepy to think about.
I 100% believe that because in any other house I lived in, I never felt what I did living in this house that I'm talking about now. Like I said, the first day I felt like impending doom and like just I knew there was just bad things to come. And that just so happens that was also like the peak of my mom's episodes and the abuse and all that other stuff. So, just I feel like that kind of contributed to it because we would catch her in a room like talking to herself and we thought it was like just her being weird and crazy. But one day she had stopped one of our friends that was hanging out. Nobody else was in the house. We were all walking out the door to go somewhere. And he was like the last one out the door besides her, but I guess she had stopped him and was like, "Hey, they don't believe me, but there's evil upstairs." And he didn't know what to do with that information. He didn't know that we were seeing crap there, so he was just like, "Okay." And, he had told my brother and my brother told me, and I was like, "Oh, so mom sees it too. Maybe we're not completely crazy."
As far as some of the things that went on in the house, like, did you ever see anything else again, far as like shape wise, or is it more or less just that one time for the shadow?
I saw a pair of red eyes one time. Um, so we also, in our second dining room, which we really used as like our computer area, we had like these, I don't know what you call them, like the double patio doors. And we didn't have like curtains over them or anything. And one night I was just like walking through there talking to my older sister on the phone because she wasn't there. She had moved out by that point. And I walked by the door and there's just a pair of red freaking eyes staring through the glass, like at eye level. And I was like, what? And I screamed, dropped the phone, and ran and told my dad because he was in the living room just right next to the computer room there. And he went and looked and he's like, "I don't see anything. It must have been a coyote." And I was like, "But dad, that had to have been a tall coyote." He's like, "But you were also like 4'11". So I didn't really buy that story because to me, it just didn't make sense for it to be. I never heard of a coyote having red eyes
No.
or
Now,
being that tall. And I didn't even see like a figure with it. I just
where
saw
was it at?
it was on our patio through the double patio doors.
But like the height wise, like,
Oh, like eye level with me.
and you were standing?
Mhm.
There'd been no way to have been a coyote.
No. I also kind of think my dad was in denial about some stuff. He's still never said much about that house. So,
For me, when you see eyes reflecting at that height level, like it doesn't. Coyote's eyes also wouldn't be reflecting red.
yeah, none of that, like I said, made sense to
Most
me.
eye shine from an animal is typically like a white to a yellowy
Hmm.
type of color. You don't really see red.
Yeah. Or like sometimes I'll see green on like
Yeah.
cats or something,
Yeah.
but yeah, that just didn't make sense to me. So I was like, okay, whatever. I guess I'm just gonna try to forget about that.
The red eye thing, for some reason, is weird, but it's related to like Bigfoot type stuff, which I think is also strange that when people say they see Bigfoots that their eyes are glowing red, which
Uh,
as a primate, and I don't know, I'm not an expert, but you wouldn't think like our eyes don't reflect. Now they reflect red if you take a photo,
hmm
but like if you have headlights shining, your eyes don't reflect like an animal. So I've always thought that was strange.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That was definitely a weird situation. I picked the phone back up and my sister was like, "Oh my God, are you okay? What happened?" And I was like, "I guess I just saw a coyote." And just went on acting like that did not happen.
yeah, for me, I wouldn't. If I saw red eyes looking at me, me being myself, I'd probably just go and look to see what it was because I'm stupid like that.
Oh no. Oh, not me. It still gives me goosebumps thinking about that because I mean, nothing about that was like obviously not human, not animal. It just, I had felt,
But at least it was outside.
yeah, I was like, well, at least it's not in the house that I saw it.
Yeah. It's
But
weird when it comes to certain aspects to when it comes to things like this because if you see something outside, well, it's outside. So it's not actually in there with you.
hmm And this was after that incident with my little Pomeranian too. Maybe it at that point maybe couldn't get in or something. I don't know.
A lot of people say that these things have to be invited in,
Right.
and it didn't matter that you guys moved into it after the fact, like it was already there
hmm
because at that point it was letting you know when you first moved in, this is my place. That's why the stuff got thrown off the table or off the dishes were tossed and you saw it or whatever. That was it's letting you know that it's here.
Yeah. That's part of the feeling that I got is just like I shouldn't be here and just hatred and evil and impending doom, all of the negativity. Yeah, I've never felt that at any other house before or after. So, I mean,
It,
it
it's
was just weird.
a lot of people like to throw out the word demons because that is what is popular these days. I don't want to say everything's demons. There are certain things out there that people call demons that on a technicality basis as demons, but now people think that alien activity is demons.
Mhm.
So I don't like to go down that pathway of saying everything is a demon.
Right.
But if there's an over a bearing feeling of like just pure evil and hatred and everything else, like there's either something very traumatic happened there that has put this energy to manifest itself in there and it won't let go of it,
Mhm.
or it could be something demonic. Like I don't.
I kind of, you know, obviously, like you said, lots of people like to go towards the demonic thing, but I've always been into like, oh, I wonder if there's like cryptids or, aliens. And not just because of my religious upbringing, but just, I don't know, the way everything happened, what I would feel, it felt, spiritual, like a demon.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's that story my grandma was talking about with my older cousin, her son's son. Um, I guess his mom, when she was pregnant with him, had went to like some sort of palm reader because she was having nightmares that something bad was gonna happen with her kid, and so she went to a palm reader, and I guess this palm reader said some along the lines of, you know, there's gonna be evil around when your son is born, and there's going to be this specific song that plays in the hospital instead of what they normally play. And if you hear that, that's how you know the evil will be around. And lo and behold, months later, when he was born, she heard that song in the hospital and started freaking out. My uncle didn't believe any of it, so he says. But my grandma was over visiting, seeing the new baby and everything, and um, the mom was in the bathroom getting ready, and my grandma and my uncle were in the room, looking at the baby and stuff. And he had got called in the bathroom and he went in there. And so it's just my grandma and my cousin. And she said, there was no noise playing anywhere, no radios, no TVs. The TV was on, but it was muted. And she said, all of a sudden, she started hearing a beautiful man's voice singing. Oh, I can't remember the name of the song, but she just started hearing a beautiful man's voice singing. And so she looked up at the TV and she's like, nope, not the TV. And so she called out. She was like, hey, you know, is that you singing? And he comes in the living room. He's like, what are you talking about? My uncle did. And she was like, well, I just heard a beautiful man's voice singing. What, wasn't that you? He goes, nope, don't tell Jennifer that, she's already freaking out because this, and that, with the palm reader and what she said to her. And grandma was like, oh, well, that's really weird. So that kind of freaked her out. And I guess when she went home that night, she lived by herself, and it was just in a little apartment, and the bedroom, she had two bedrooms upstairs, and that was it. And I guess she had heard a deep growl in her spare bedroom. And so she was freaked out, kind of thinking, well, maybe it's a robber. I think she was just in denial or something, trying to excuse it for anything else. And so she went up, was looking around, getting ready to like have to fight if she had to, saw nothing, nowhere. So she called her sister to talk about it. And her sister called a family member that was a priest. And, eventually he talked to my grandma and was like, that sounds like a demonic spirit that's after, his son, your son's son. because it was his firstborn. And so ever since then, she said she's had to keep a Bible next to her bed and say some prayer. And if she feels anything's weird in there, say, in the name of Jesus Christ, leave this house. And kind of seems like that's been a thing on my side of the family. Like the firstborn son is always, trying to get its soul taken or something.
What was the song that the palm reader told your aunt or whoever it would have been?
I don't think my brain keeps wanting to say hush little baby, but I don't think that was it. I wish I could remember right now, but something that wasn't normal to be played. Because I guess when someone has a baby, or back then when they had a baby, they'd play a song and let everybody know a baby was born or something.
I don't know anything about something like that. When it comes to palm readers or fortune tellers or anything like that in general, I'm always skeptical just because I feel like a lot of them are grifting.
Yeah, I don't really believe in that kind of.
I think people have psychic abilities to an extent, and like they're more in tune with like what goes on than the average person. I think there's a lot of parts of our brain that we all can have that ability to. We just don't know how to tap into it.
Mhm.
But when it comes to people saying they can predict the future, they're going to tell you your future and how. Why are all these people not winning the lottery?
Right, exactly.
Like,
I definitely think that there are people out there that can, tap into those abilities, but I
Mhm.
think most of them are just, trying to play you or something.
I always bring up when I've talked to a few psychics before, but I always bring up the thing from the 90s because that's just what I remember is like Miss Cleo. Like, call me now for your free reading stuff. Like, I just remember those late night commercials of Miss Cleo. But
Yeah, I don't know. This is just from when I heard that story the one time. My grandma doesn't like to talk about it. And this was way back when I still lived in this creepy house that I heard that. And it definitely seems like my brother, he was really going through some stuff. It was my dad's firstborn son,
Yeah.
so only son, really. Because my older brother's from a different guy. So yeah, it just kind of seems like a thing in my family on that side that they're always going through something weird and crazy, like spiritual, I guess. Like my brother, yeah, he thinks that like sometimes he's followed by something like that. He said he was at a friend's house and they were talking about, oh, since you've been staying here, like we've heard weird stuff and like stuff getting moved around. And I guess my brother had woke up with like 3 scratch marks on him, like deep ones, and it freaked him out. He won't hardly tell me any
where were they
details.
at?
I can't even remember what he said, if it was on his arm or his leg or his back. It was one of those spots. But he only told me once, and he said, I don't want to talk about it. It's really creepy.
Is this your older brother or your twin?
My twin brother.
Okay. Yeah. The 3 is very, I've dealt with that here, which I think you guys know, like when we first moved in.
Yeah.
The 3 is always referred to as mocking of the Holy Trinity. So when there's 3 scratch marks, I have learned from other people or from things I've read, which it could be 100% not true, who knows? But usually it is referred to as something mocking the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I There's just a whole lot of weird stuff. Uh, I'm open to believing it's whatever, but this, like I said, just to me feels more spiritual, like demonic.
Do you ever feel like when you were there that you were ever like a heaviness to yourself?
Oh yeah.
Like your energy was, I don't want to say like being drained, but like something like just very heavy in the air, like draining to an extent.
Yeah. Um, no, I don't know, I just felt horrible being at home. And it seemed like when I'd go out and hang out with some friends, I felt way better. And as soon as I go back home, I felt even more depressed. Um, I felt like exhausted all the time. Just like I was being watched all the time, like I was walking on eggshells all the time. Uh, just weird feeling. Um, there was always like I had two windows in my room as well, and birds constantly, only in my room, would whack into my window all the time for no apparent reason. I mean, I just felt like I was kind of targeted.
Like something was just drawing them towards it.
Hmm.
That is strange.
Yeah.
There is did you ever notice a lot of flies?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Only in your
Especially, well, in my room, a ton of them around the windowsills, but then also weirdly enough, in this like sunroom we had
Mhm.
back next to the kitchen is also where it was like, and I mean, this thing wasn't like it wasn't open. It wasn't an open sunroom. It was a completely enclosed sunroom. And I don't know, we also got really weird vibes back there too. Josh, my twin, he did not like hanging out there at night by himself. He always wanted me or like a friend or something to be out there with him. And that's where we kept a lot of like our guitars and stuff and drum set at one point. So that was the main hangout area, and he did not like to be there at night by himself.
Did I tell you about the recent fly incident?
No.
It was right before I came out to here, which is part of the reason why I wanted to get out of the house. This was back in June, but this whole desk, I was down here editing and I had to go out to the chickens to put them up. So from going to the basement to the chickens to back in here is a total of 5 minutes total. I come back here and there's a fly, and then there's another dead fly. And I'm pretty sure I think I still have them in the garage. I need to bring them out here to get them out of the house. But I have about 27 dead flies that are across my desk in a 5 minute span.
That is
They were not
unsettling.
they were not here because I was down here messing with stuff. They were not on my desk, but they are all green, metallic green. And they were I put them all in this little cup and I put a lid on them and I brought them out to the garage and that's where they were staying at. But
Yeah, I don't know what's up with the fly thing. I've never really heard like an explanation for that, but I just know it kind of goes hand in hand with like evil spirit
they were
encounter.
for mine, they were literally only on this desk. They were nowhere else, only on my desk. So the entire basement, I only found them on my desk.
Yeah, like you're being targeted or
Mhm.
something.
And that was literally 2 months ago.
Ew. Well, yeah, I would, from what I can remember, it was mostly like the most accumulation that I remember is on my windowsills up there. And I don't think my twin brother had that or my older brother. I don't think my parents' windows had that. So I remember my dad, he would come in my room sometimes and just, we'd be chit-chatting and he'd be like, "Here, you need to clean your windows. You like never clean your windowsills. You always got dead bugs over here." I clean it. I don't know how they keep showing up, or I don't know where they're getting in at, or
When I looked online for the green ones, they're basically saying they are attracted to something rotting.
oh,
So usually it's a dead animal or something. I didn't have anything dead, but a lot of people will write off all windowsill flies are coming in because it's warmer and they get trapped. Or a lot of people look for the explanations to certain things, but like if you start to look into a lot of these weird occurrences, flies, for some strange reason, are very prevalent in a lot of the details. Like even, I'm pretty sure the old horror movie, the Amityville,
oh yeah.
there was flies on their windows at some point too, because I think that was part of the Delfio's story or the whatever the people's not, but the The ones that ended up taking over the house,
The DeFeos.
the Fayos.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't remember what color these flies were. I think I saw like regular black ones. I think I saw green ones too at some point. And the house did smell like sulfur, like really bad. We did have well water, so that could have been it, but it seemed like it would be in places where we had like not a sink or stuff like that. So it just seemed like the whole entire house smelled like it all the time.
was it an older house?
Oh yeah, this was an old house. I don't know the year, but I
Was it?
know it was old.
Is it in town or was it outside of town?
Right on the edge of town. It's on Boulevard,
Okay.
East 100 South.
Okay. So it's kind of on the outskirts. Basically, you said a well. I'm trying to think like for me, the lands themselves carry something. I don't want to say like residual hauntings or anything like that, but look at the area that we live in. Basically, this whole area was like Native American lands at one point or another. And
That
who
actually,
who knows what was things were built on top of?
right, that actually goes into another experience I had. So, uh, we didn't at first we didn't grow up super religious. I mean, we would go to church every now and then, but there was a point where my parents wanted to start sending us to a Christian school after we had moved on to Boulevard. Um, and we had been going there for a little bit, and I had a dream, a really, really weird dream, and I like it almost felt real while it was happening. And I woke up in the house by myself. It was dark, and I looked out the windows, and everything was like red
Mm-hmm.
and just red and black outside. And I'm like, okay, where is everybody at? So I'm looking around, and I get that feeling of impending doom and all that. And I'm looking out the windows, and finally I see movement, and I'm just seeing dead Indians coming out of the ground in my dream and trying to get into the house, but they can't get in. And I'm like, where is everybody? And it's like the whole time I'm trying to keep things from getting in the house, trying to find my family, and I wake up, and that one just stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a weird dream to
And it
just
felt,
dream in general. Like
yeah,
it's not the memory of it or whatever, very prevalent because I don't want to say that's 100% ties in. Like I said, I don't say anything because I don't know anything, but I think a lot of the stuff, at least around here, has something to do with Native American lands, just because this used to be their land,
hmm
and we came and basically took it from them and built our places on them, and here we are. So who knows what happened here hundreds of years ago?
right. And I guess Kokomo was actually named after an Indian chief in that area. His name is Chief Kokomoko, is what
Mhm.
my aunt had told me at one point. So I mean, yeah, who knows what that house was even built on. But it seems like after, we started going to that Christian school, I kept having weird dreams like that. I even had a dream where, woke up in the house by myself again, trying to find people, and it's red outside. And I go to look in our backyard. In our backyard, we had 6 acres. We were on 6 acres of land total. So we had a really big backyard, and there was a fenced part, and then the rest of it was unfenced. And we had apple trees and other stuff like that out there. So I look outside, and it seems like way in the back I can see someone standing out there. So I'm like, I'm gonna go see if that's like mom or dad or one of my siblings. And I walk out there, and then I just randomly see before I get to that figure, I see another figure on a swing set that we didn't even have swinging. And so I go up to her, and she looks at me, and she has no face. And she just points over at the figure that I'm seeing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go check that out. That's weird. And I go up to it, And it's my mom. I can, like, from behind, it's my mom. And she's looking down, and there's a big crack in the ground that's representing hell. There's like fire, and I can hear screams and crackling, and she's just staring at it. And I look up at her, and her head's severed, and then it falls off and right in front of me, and it's my mom's face looking at me, and then her body falls in. And so I wake up, and I'm like, what even was that? I kept feeling like maybe I was being like threatened, like your whole family's gonna burn or something, or if you don't leave, type of thing. I don't know. I had a lot of weird dreams around that point, especially.
That is a very graphic dream.
Yeah.
Um, well, knowing some of the things I know from just talking with you outside of this, to me, it almost seems like that dream is, I don't know how to say it without sounding like cliche or whatever, but like you cut the head off the snake. And from everything that we've talked about before, like the problems with your mom and everything else, like maybe it wasn't so much a dream in the sense of it's evil, but it's almost like a dream kind of telling you what's going on.
Yeah. I also have thought of maybe that explanation. Like
Mhm.
maybe it's saying, hey, you know, because my mom's thing was to blame us for like literally everything. We didn't understand mental health back then.
Mm-hmm.
My dad didn't talk about it. He was gone at work all the time. We just didn't understand mental health. So I feel like maybe that was kind of it, saying, you're not the problem, your mom is the problem, or
You're
she's
maybe
very,
subconsciously you know this, and that was your mind's way of telling you like it's not you.
yeah. I've thought of a million different things that could have meant, and
Mm.
I just don't know. Yeah, just really crazy like experiences going on, at that time. I didn't really know how to process anything.
Now, before you guys moved here, was there ever any weird activity that you're aware of prior
At the house,
with, and just in your family in general, like from the previous place you lived or whatever? Because sometimes these things can attach to people, and maybe your mom was like the harbinger of a lot of it.
um, not that I can remember. Not really. It just all seemed to start hitting us like a freight train when we moved into that place.
So the house itself was the catalyst for everything.
That's what we all think.
Was
Because
there, not to
years.
interrupt you, but like, was there problems prior to this with your mom before you guys moved in, or did it escalate since you moved into that house?
She was always abusive. But she wasn't so mentally unstable. As soon as we moved to this Boulevard house, she snapped and was saying crazy stuff and getting even more abusive more regularly. And it just, because before, it was bad, but not near as bad as when we moved into that house.
It does sound very reminiscent of when other people have these issues or whatever. Like, I don't want to say she was possessed, but like maybe the negative energies that's already there amplify what's already inside of her
Yeah.
and just manifest this whole storm of evilness.
That's what that's something my older sister had said. She said that she thinks that's what happened. And my aunt has said the same thing. So,
These things are known to take advantage of situations, and especially the ones that are already weak.
mhm. Yeah.
Your mom may have been a lot more prone to this just from her disability, her mental disability with it. And it just was just easy for her to, it was easy for it to just like latch onto her, and everything that she was doing was just being amplified because it was this thing, because these things supposedly live off the negativity. They feed on the negative energy. They feed on the fear, the hatred. All like that is what they're basically low vibrations. If you talk to a lot of people, they feed on low vibrations, and hatefulness, fearfulness, all that stuff is like a very low vibration.
Yeah. My mom was definitely a very negative minded, hateful person even before moving into this house. And, probably because of that entity latching on to her, I feel like you said, that just amplified everything.
They have, again, I don't know. I'm not saying this is what happened because I don't know, but just from talking with other people and things I've read and researched or looked into and watched, it seems like these types of beings or whatever you want to call them, this is what they do. They have a means to latch on to the weakest person, and that's how they go. Like we mentioned the Amityville, like it literally the guy that murdered his whole family, and then the Lutzes that moved in afterwards, like the father, same thing. They were trying to like get through him, like
Yeah.
and obviously that's just the most popular. So when I bring that up, that's just because everyone knows what that is.
Right.
But like there are so many other instances where this has happened, and it's very similar to where it seems like these things find the one weak person, and then that's the person that they latch onto, and they use them as their means of causing trauma.
Yeah. My older brother, who struggles with addiction and has even back then, he used to, and he still does. He says that he is followed by a demon everywhere he goes, which he was diagnosed with like drug-induced schizophrenia. So it could be that. But it all kind of relates back to the peak of all that crazy stuff happening onto the Boulevard house. We've, it's just kind of hard to say, oh, that's true, or oh, that's just your disability, or
Sometimes I've talked with folks, and I wonder if they themselves aren't schizophrenic, but then you need to, like, I need to think about this in a different perspective than the science-based perspective. What if people that we say have these schizophrenic disabilities or whatever, what if the things that they are saying or seeing, maybe they're actually seeing that stuff? Like, I understand that they're seeing it, but like, what if it is real?
like
Like-
what if having that disability actually opens up
Yes.
the part that you can see stuff?
Like the thing they say the demons are doing this, like maybe they actually see the demons. And we say it's a disability because we don't see them.
Right.
But what if their mind, we're shut off from it? Like I said with psychics earlier, what if their mind actually sees these things that are there? What if they don't need those Vietnam infrared glasses to see these things? Like they have the ability to actually see these low frequency beams.
Now, if it wouldn't have been for my own experiences at that place, I would not have believed my mom or my older brother.
Mhm.
But having my own experiences when nobody was home, I feel like that could be the case. I'm open to believing anything like that because we don't know. We don't know 100% anything. People are like, oh, there's only heaven and there's only hell, or there's nothing else. We're the only beings in the galaxy. And it's like, we don't know that. We can explore that. Who knows?
I don't like going down the whole religious aspect because I'm not a religious person. I think there's a lot more to it than just heaven and hell. And for the most part, people always want to say good and evil. The Bible, the Old Testament, I don't even think they really ever mentioned a devil in the Old Testament. That was more of a New Testament thing. And the God of the Old Testament was a lot more vengeful than the God of the New Testament. So when it comes to Christianity and things like that, I just recently found there's 40,000 different denominations of Christianity, which is crazy to think about, but there's that many.
Right.
So I just try and take all religious aspects and just not worry about it and focus on what goes on. But like for this, when people say demons, more or less the demons were the fallen angels or whatever you want to call them. They fell down. Like, just take that completely off base. What if that is not the case? But what if these things were already here? And that's what these things are. We call them ghosts. We call them demons. Some people call them aliens. Some people call them interdimensional beings. Like there's all sorts of different things they could possibly be. But the fact of the matter is that they are these things that just feed on us. They feed on the energy. Some people call them succubus. Some people call them, it's all the same thing. Like we are basically here, and all the negativity that goes on in the world. Look at social media. That's all you need to look at. Like
Right.
we are their food source, and we 100% make it easy for them. But is that by design? So
Yeah, I am, I always say that, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, but I also feel like I don't always agree with Christianity. It, you know, I I'm open to believing a lot because I am also aware that there is more to it. There's more to this world than what even Christianity says or what this religion says or that religion says. And I just kind of go off of my own experiences and I'm just pretty much open to.
I don't fault anyone for having beliefs in like a religion, but for me, I feel like religion boxes you in.
Yeah.
In a lot of the ways that religions are set up, they're set up to control people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe this way, and this is the only way. So,
Oh yeah. There are tons of like horror, like religious horror stories, like where like conversion camps,
mhm.
being, you know, like in the same gender, that's a sin. And so we're going to send you to a conversion camp and torture you. It's
there's a
like,
lot
how
of
is that good?
there's a lot of cults based off religions too, because people claim they talk to God, and because they can talk to God, that means you have to listen to what I tell you because God says you have to do this because God told me, and then people believe that shit.
Right. It's like, but where's the evidence?
They don't question that. You don't question the person because you're questioning God. Like it is, I don't want to say it's easy, but like if people are so easily manipulated by a charismatic person, the cult leader, it's almost like anyone that goes down that pathway can be easily persuaded because once you start believing in what this person in charge is telling you, how far are they going to push it to where they're like, well, God says you have to do this now.
Right.
And who are you to question God? And they could throw that out there. And for anyone listening, I'm not explaining to people how to become a cult leader, but I'm just trying to say, like, it's very prevalent in most cults that there's always the one leader, and he's always, I say he, but it typically seems to be most men
Yeah.
that are the cult leaders, and they have this way of manipulating people, and
Yeah.
it's all done in the name of God.
Yeah. I think, and there's just a lot of people I think that are either too lazy to question or they just don't have that ability to question. So they're more of a follower.
Some of them are bred into it in the sense that like they've been brought up into the whole cult themselves, so they don't even know what they're questioning because this is all they know.
Yeah, it's normal to them. Yeah, I think it's crazy, like you said, just how easily someone could just do that and people will just go along with it.
For us looking outside, like it seems crazy, but to the people that experience it, I know that they don't have any option. Here in Indiana, this is where Jim Jones originally came from. And anyone listening would know Jim Jones, like they went down to South America and drank the Kool-Aid. How much power does one person have that can make an entire colony of people up and move, and not to mention all commit suicide? Because again, that goes against the wishes of God if you believe in the Bible, in the sense of, because that is a sin. Like causing your own, it's hypocritical. I don't know. Like I said, when it comes to religion, I get very cult leader, I guess, because I have my own beliefs about it.
I definitely believe in a higher power, and I believe in good and I believe in evil, but I wouldn't say I'm religious because I don't just think one way and that's the way, or I don't think everybody should, or I'm not going to try to get everybody to, or
I think if you're a good person and you do good in life and you try and be good, that's the best that anyone can really do.
right.
There are a lot of people that are quote unquote great people that are very judgmental, very backstabbing, very not what they front to be.
Hmm.
Yet when you see them or talk to them, and they act like they're the greatest things out there and they're super, super nice and they're great people, but it's just the front.
Yeah.
The genuine person that's a good person and does what they can do and helps people and tries to do the best they can. I think those are the people that really are gonna, if there is an afterlife, those will be the ones that'll be rewarded, not the fakes.
Yeah.
And that's why I have my issues with most religions and churches and everything else, because I feel like a good portion of the people that go are only there for appearances.
Yeah.
They're not
Very.
there to live the life that they claim that they're there to live. It's only there for the appearance's sake. I'm
Mhm.
here for 2 hours. Now I get to go commit all the sins again and come back and ask for forgiveness. That's not how it should work.
No. And they're often the most judgmental
Yeah.
people out there, like that Christian school that me and my twin brother had went to. Those were the rudest,
Hmm.
most horrible people I had ever experienced in my life. I got told every day by the other little kids there that I was going to go to hell because I wore pants and not a skirt, and I had a cell phone, and then I had a guitar. Like they were, their parents taught them that stuff. Their school taught them that stuff. Their religion tells them, if you don't live this way, then you're gonna go to hell for sure.
That's the fear tactic. And it's the same thing, like I said, with cults. And it's the same thing. It's when it push comes to shove, almost every religion to an extent is a cult. I mean, by definition, they are.
Yep.
And the belief systems are pushed upon them, and the fear of going to hell or wherever it is for not following their set rules is what's pushed too, because that is again a means to control. That's why I say I don't do religion, because I think it's all just made to control people and to push whatever narrative they want pushed on people.
Right. No, I agree with that.
Back to the house, what was the one of the last things that you remember that happened before you guys ended up moving?
There was one day in particular, um, where there was just a ton of birds smacking my window. And we were slowly packing up to move. And there were just a ton of birds smacking my windows all day for like a week straight. And then a few nights before we actually moved out, I had a TV sitting on a TV stand, a wooden one. And I was watching, I think it was like Ghost Adventures or something. And I started hearing like this creaking sound. And like this was a sturdy TV stand. I started hearing a creaking sound. And I was like, what is going on? So I muted my TV and was listening. And then my TV just like everything collapses on the stand. Like it didn't even look like anything had broke. Like it had just fallen apart. And it crashed everything on, because it was kind of like a shelf one. Everything just freaking crashed and broke in on itself. And this thing, like I said, it was sturdy. It was almost brand new, and it wasn't wobbly, no janky stuff like that. So freaked me out, and I screamed, and they heard all the stuff falling down. My family did, and so my brother and my dad came running in there. It was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened? Are you okay?" And I was like, I don't know. The TV, like the stand just collapsed on itself, and it just didn't make sense as to how. And they were like, well, was it already cracked right here before or blah, blah, blah. And we couldn't figure out how because I was like, no, wasn't cracked.
It's just, what type of birds were crashing into these windows?
It was like a robins or like the typical like little brown
Okay.
birds.
I didn't know if they were like the typical blackbirds that most people.
I saw some blackbirds hit the window. It was like all birds.
We had a random bird hit the window yesterday. I think it was yesterday. It didn't die, but like I seen it like bump into the window because we have the bushes out front. So when we have birds hit, I don't think a whole lot about it. But I've seen, it was last week actually, it was a week ago today. There was a large black bird just out by the driveway. And I don't know if it was a crow or a raven or what, but it wasn't the typical, it wasn't a buzzard. It was an all black bird. We've had little blackbirds out here, like typical bird size, but this thing was very big for a blackbird.
Hmm.
And I've never seen one that large out here, so I don't know what it would have been. It could have been like I don't know how big crows or ravens are, like how big the difference of them are, but
I think they're fairly big, but I don't really know either. It was just like the normal birds I would see out in the yard because
Mhm.
we would have like those little brown ones, we'd have robins and like these darker, almost little black ones. And it was a lot of the time it was robins or the black ones, you know, but I never really paid much attention because, they just whacked the window real fast and
Did they die or were they just slam into?
a couple of them did. And one of them was a robin. And one of them was a blackbird. But other than that, like I didn't see that they didn't die,
Hmm.
but they would leave like their wing marks.
Where you say
on
where they slapped into the
Yeah.
glass. No. But since you moved there, you've never had anything else really.
I have never had any other experience like that since moving out.
So it's all kind of located with the house.
Hmm.
Do you know the house is still there?
Oh yeah, it's still there. I actually drive by it almost every day recently, just on
Do you
my
ever
route to work.
do you ever stop like want to stop and ask the people if they've ever had anything weird happen to them?
I want to so bad, but again, I don't want to look crazy.
There is I mentioned this when I was talking with Easton. There is a town, it was not too far from where one of my jobs was. And the town itself had I got messages from multiple people about this area. So I wanted to go to the town and I went to the gas station. There's a Casey's gas station. And I wanted to go in there and ask them about the Watcher. Because that was like the cryptid thing that was supposedly going on. And there was people that was supposedly out in the cornfields with masks. I went to the gas station. I went into the gas station and I never asked because I didn't want to be that crazy person that went in there and be like, hey, do you know you got a monster out here?
Yeah, people tend to look at you funny when you start asking stuff like that.
So I pussed out when I went in and just got whatever it was I was getting and drinking, and I just drove on back to work. I was like, man, I just couldn't do it. There was people in line. I was like, I don't want to be this weirdo.
I feel like maybe I could ask those people that live there, but I'm also scared to go there. So I don't want it like, I don't know, maybe latching on to me. I'm just always worried about that. Like, I don't want to go to haunted places. So like, what if it latches on to me? Or especially this place because I live
Make
there.
up an email address. Here's some advice for me for anyone listening. Make up an email address and write a letter and then drop it off into a post office like mailer and mail it without a return address. And then in the letter, give an email address so they can respond back to you. That way,
That's actually a really good idea.
if they have a way of communicating, they can respond back by email, or they're just going to think you're some, crazy person. But say you just don't want to seem like a random crazy person, but I'm writing you a letter. It makes it even look like a crazy person. But that would be the best. That way they don't know who you are and you don't have to know them. This keeps the anonymity or whatever the proper term is. But
And that's actually a really good idea. And I just might do that.
yeah, hopefully they don't listen to the show.
We'll follow up on that.
I'll give an update. I'll do a special update for this episode if there's been any updates from that. But is there anything else you would like to discuss?
That's pretty much it. I mean, there was always oddball stuff here and there that it's escaped my mind at this point because I was over 10 years ago,
Right.
but that's pretty much it.
Well, we can probably wrap this up, but I want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Definitely.
Listen to me ramble.
I enjoy what I do, and I'm glad people give me the opportunity to allow them to come on here and share things about their life that they normally don't get a chance to talk about. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. So for everyone listening, thanks for doing that. We appreciate you guys. It has been exactly 2 years since this whole thing started. Today is the 2-year anniversary. So say thanks to Arielle coming in here tonight and talking with me. Been a pleasure. But we're going to roll on out. So good night. And that's the show, everyone. I really hope you guys enjoyed the conversations. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com or go to the contact section of tinfoiltales.com. Just get your message to me. We'll get something scheduled for a future episode. And just remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.
Tinfoil Tales in the headphones. Yeah, it's time to rock. Got a story about a cryptic creature. Let's take a walk. Bigfoot, dogman, they're out there in the dark. But the truth is out there like an alien spark. UFO sightings got the whole world shook. Conspiracies unfold like a story in a book. Media control, trying to keep us blind. Oh, before gonna use my own mind. In history, they don't want us to know the secrets they hide, the truth they won't show. Dominate our society, they keep us in chains. But I'm standing tall, it's time to break the reins. Control, trying to keep us blind, but I won't be fooled, gonna use my own mind.